Welcome back to the Book Authority, our show to help you become more successful and have more fun at your writing and publishing and marketing your books. We have two book authorities of the week. Alisa Weberman and Alfred Martino are partners in the audio business, Listen and Live Audio. So we'll be talking about audio books and how you can take your book and make that into an audio program. Thank you for being our book authorities of the week.
Sure.
Pleasure to have you on the show. Alisa, could you start off and tell us a little bit about yourself and perhaps how you got started in the audio business?
Sure. I am the publisher of Listen and Live Audio, and what we do mainly is publish audiobooks in the nonfiction, self-help, and relationship categories. We also do a lot of business titles. We started the company about 6 years ago. Alfred and I were classmates in an MBA program, and we started the company as a class project, and it evolved into
That's a great idea.
Listen and Live Audio.
So it was a project in school, as a paper or something you did and decided that audio books were good?
Exactly.
Hey,
Exactly.
It's a good way to start a business.
Yeah.
6 years later, it's worked out well.
Yes.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear it. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Alfred, how about you? What's your background?
Well, I handle I'm the president of the company. I handle most of the sales and marketing. Although we split some of the jobs, my background has been in sales of pre-recorded video and audio, so it was sort of a natural for me to handle that part of our audiobook line. So that's most of what I do.
Okay. But you specialize in nonfiction. That's correct? Is that what you said?
Right.
Is there any opportunity for fiction in audio and audiobooks?
Oh, yeah. Fiction's huge in audiobooks. Bestsellers obviously do very well, but we've published a short story volume, and we're actually coming out with a second volume of the short stories this spring, so they do really well.
Fiction in audio tends to be a little more difficult, so it's something that we're planning on moving into in the future, but we've sort of found our niche with self-help titles and expanding a little bit from that point, but still in nonfiction.
Okay. So from the audience perspective, there's some nonfiction authors out there. They want to learn how do they get their book into the audio business? Does it have to be a success in the bookstores first before it's made into audio, or is it vice versa, or doesn't it matter?
It's a little of both. What we do is how we get our books is we generally talk to publishers, we talk to agents, we get catalogs, we get inquiries from authors, we look at bookstores, we look online, we look in Publishers Weekly and other magazines to see what's being published, and we look for specific titles or areas that our expertise is in, and we sometimes publish the audiobook simultaneously with the book.
Okay.
So the book has no track record, and other times we'll publish a book that's been out on the market for years.
What types of categories really would make it the best in audio?
I think nonfiction.
I mean, as far as in nonfiction, you have different categories.
Self-help and business are really big areas. I think men generally like business titles, and I think women like the self-help area.
So this isn't like exercise videos or something like that, or audio? I'm sorry, video, audio programs.
Well, we actually have a yoga audio tape that does well for us. So there's a little of everything, but I think categories overall, the best sellers are business, self-help, and fiction.
Okay. Would the author just take a manuscript or the book and give it to you and say, here, make an audio program out of it?
Typically not. I mean, really, the book has to already be published. And that's important to us because when I go to the buyers of the major retail chains, whether we like it or not, what they do is they look and see how well the book had sold, and then they buy the audio according to that, which makes it difficult because if the book hasn't sold well, then you're probably not going to get into the major chains. But that's not set in stone, and of course it depends on how well the author pushes their audio, what the job that we do as far as marketing it and promoting it that all adds to how an audiobook can, or a manuscript can be successful on audio.
Okay. So it's not or is it a condensed version of the book, or is it a word for word reading of the book?
It depends. We either do abridged or unabridged. We generally publish 2 cassette or 4 cassette. These are 4 cassette audiobooks. So it depends how long the book is. If it's too long, we abridge it. We generally cut it down, not the author. But the industry itself is going more towards less abridgment and longer cassettes, because it seems like the listener likes that better.
Okay. So you might have 2 packages together, perhaps, to go to 8 cassettes, or would you just
there's different configurations of packaging that you can do that have all the cassettes together.
Like they have 6.
They have some that are like 36 cassettes. I mean, huge. But
nonfiction titles, especially self-help and motivational, they sort of lend themselves to be abridged. I found that a lot of what is in the book that you need as far as reading it and getting all the material doesn't necessarily have to be there or repeated as much when you're talking about an audiobook. Alisa does all the abridging, so her hands are pretty full when it comes to that.
I imagine so.
yeah.
That's good. Why would somebody buy an audio book instead of the book?
Oh, I can
There's
tell
a
you.
lot of reasons.
Oh, yeah, a lot of very good reasons. Personally, I think the real benefit, I think, to audio is that you have the writers, what the writer has given to it, and you also have the actor or actress or narrator and their interpretation of it. So you not only get the benefit of the words from the author, but you get someone's interpretation, and I find it to be great entertainment. I listen to them all the time, in the car, at home. I think if you find a narrator that has a very nice voice, it can even be just nice to have it in the background, to hear that sort of thing. So I love them. I think they're great.
And I think that people also like to use their downtime when they're driving. So they'll pop in a tape and they'll learn something maybe about business, or they'll read or listen to that book that they don't have time to sit down and read.
Well, I do that a lot myself. I do a lot of driving up in the area, and I just plug in a cassette. It makes it go a lot more quickly the whole trip. So it sounds like I can learn something.
Yeah, and I think once people start listening, they just get hooked. And I know I won't drive anywhere without an audiobook.
I'm just trying to figure out the best way to take notes while I'm doing that. I haven't figured out how to do that yet. Could you kind of walk us through the process of what you do to the book or the manuscript once you get it, and once you decide, what are your criterion for accepting the manuscript, and how to start from the beginning, how they would submit it, how you choose it, and then how you produce it? How's that for a question? I'll sit back and let you talk for the next half hour.
Okay. What we do is when we find a book that we like to do, something that fits into our niche, which is, like we said, nonfiction. We tend to do sort of fun, interesting, quirky titles. That's what we like. We acquire the audio rights. We buy the audio rights from whoever owns them, the author, the publisher, or the agent. Once we have the rights,
could you explain when you buy the rights? Does that mean for English rights, for North American rights, for whatever?
Whatever is available. Sometimes worldwide, sometimes all languages, sometimes just English, North American. But
typically, what we're looking for is worldwide English rights. Okay. That pretty much covers all the markets that we would deal with, and the rights as far as audio that we would need to use.
Do you do foreign language audio?
We don't, and I don't anticipate doing that in the near future.
Okay. So you're back to.
So once we've acquired the book, we look at it to see if it needs to be abridged or not, or it can be published whole. We have right now about 36 titles, so we have a pretty good idea of how many pages take up how much time on the cassette. So we determine the length that the cassette should be, and the length the entire program should be, and whether we need to abridge it. If it needs to be abridged, I read through it and abridge, basically trying to keep the continuity of the story or what's being told and make sure the main points are left in, and taking out things that maybe aren't as important.
How much does the author get involved with that? Because I imagine the author thinks everything's important.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because we've actually had authors who have read some of the books that we've done who have been very reticent to cut anything out until they start getting in the studio and reading it, and they realize how much work it is, and then by the end of the studio session they're ready to cut half the book. So usually we handle the abridging, and sometimes it's with author approval and sometimes it's not.
Okay. Just one follow-up question. You talked about the number of pages per tape. What is the number of pages per tape, just approximately?
A three-hour program is somewhere between 90, 120 pages,
Okay.
somewhere in between.
Alfred, you were going to say something?
I was going to say that while Alisa is doing the abridging and so on, I'm doing the background work as far as the sales and marketing, trying to put together sell sheets that I'm going to mail to buyers. Also, I do a lot of work trying to get our titles listed on all the online services, as well as to all the major wholesalers like Ingram and Baker and Taylor, all the regional distributors. So there's a lot of background work that I have to do to make sure that these titles that we've already contracted to do are going to be in the buying system for these companies. And then as we get closer to actually having finished product, when I can actually send out samples, then I would work on calling buyers and sending out sell sheets and doing more of the personal selling. But before that point, there's a lot of background work I have to do.
So Ingram takes audios also, and Amazon takes audios?
Well, Ingram is actually the largest audiobook wholesaler in the country. It's a pretty important company as far as audio publishers are concerned.
Do they market audios to libraries also, or does Baker and Taylor do libraries?
Baker and Taylor deals, I believe, with mostly with libraries. Ingram runs a gamut. Libraries, all the major retail chains, all the regional retail chains, independent stores. They really cover everything.
Okay. And Amazon does Amazon.com also?
Yeah,
BarnesandNoble.com.
Yeah, we sell directly to Amazon and .com and BarnesandNoble.com and all the online places.
Okay. Do the same. What types of discounts apply to audio?
Well, unfortunately, they're fairly steep, at least as we're concerned.
Books?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, we're talking well over 50% discount.
Depending on the outlet.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
Which makes it difficult, especially if you get returns.
Yeah, that does.
Yes.
That's pretty steep, because it's about 55% for books, I think, from Ingram.
Yeah.
So about the same for audio for that.
Yeah, I guess it is right in the ballpark there.
It's a big chunk.
It is, but
because you had all the production out of your 45%.
Right.
Production and of course royalties
Marketing.
to the publisher or to the author, and all the sales and marketing. But at the same time, if you don't have Ingram, you're not going to get sales to the whole country. So it's really very important.
Let's take a break in our other conversation here about the production line. But how much royalty could the author expect out of a typical contract?
Well, we can tell you that the typical royalty rate that we pay to whoever is holding the rights is somewhere in the range of 10%. Whether that's the author that we're buying the rights from or the publisher of the book, we're just dealing with the one entity that owns the audio rights. Sure. But it's somewhere around 10%.
Of the net. 10% of the net,
right.
Of the 45%.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Okay, so I want to make sure that the audience gets that point across. They're not thinking of 10% of the list price.
No, unfortunately not.
That's right. That would be a big chunk. Okay, back to whose turn is it? As far as the production, while you're doing the bridging, the editing of it, and you're doing some of the marketing of it. At what point does the cover design come in? Is this something you're working on while the editing is taking place, or is that?
No, I mainly handle all the production side of it, including casting. That's usually what we do next is we cast the book, determine if we're going to have the author read it or a professional narrator. We like to use professional narrators because it's really hard to read an audiobook. It's a lot of work. I mean, you're in the studio 6, 8 hours, and it's pretty intense, and it's really hard to get a book and the meaning out in your voice only. You can't use hand gestures, can't use facial expressions. It all has to come from the voice.
You do a tape program at 6 or 8 hours, or is it 6 or 8 hours per day?
Well, no, you probably have, for a 3-hour finished program, it's probably somewhere between 6 and 9 hours in the studio.
I would think it'd be a lot more than that.
Professional.
With all the cut, that's true. Yeah, I guess if the author does it, it takes longer.
Usually, yeah.
Yeah.
But we use a lot of people who are known in the audio industry, a lot of stage actors. I know just in general, audio publishers use a lot of movie stars, film stars, TV stars. So.
A guest on recently was talking about doing voiceovers for TV commercials. I guess that type of voice is what you're looking for.
Right, exactly. Exactly.
What do you look for? You look for tone or a deep voice or?
Yeah, it depends on the book. I mean, like one of our titles called How to Dump a Guy. So we're looking for a young woman, someone who sounds, maybe in her 20s or 30s, and obviously female. And like these audiobooks, which are our Adrenaline series, are about disasters on the ocean and in the mountains, and most of the stories are written by men and they're about men. So we look for deeper male voice, and if it's an English author, we'll use an English voice.
Do you use sound effects?
We use music. That's it. We have music usually in between chapters or sections, and at the beginning and at the end. But I think that sound effects sometimes take away from the reader's message.
Okay, I was thinking of disasters or something. You might have the waves crashing or something. You just take it away.
No,
Yeah,
frankly, the stories give you enough of that in terms of placing you right there as the wave is coming over you. So I'm not sure if you really would need them. And I think they are distracting.
Okay, that makes sense. I'm just thinking fiction is generally a little drier, nonfiction a little drier than fiction. Sometimes it doesn't place as well as fiction might, but it apparently does if it works out well with the production.
Yeah, the chapters tend to be shorter, so you have breaks in between, and I know there are some companies that do use some sound effects, but we don't.
Okay. Do you always use one voice for the entire book?
No, like these books have 4 narrators on each. They're broken into stories, so each narrator reads about 2 stories on them. We have other audiobooks that have multiple readers. That we have one that's called What Do Women Want from Men, and it's a male narrator and different women answering the questions that he asks about men. So
makes sense for the
yeah.
title. That's good. Okay, then so the reading occurs in one day, which really it just amazes me for some reason. I thought it would take long because I've done a lot of TV commercials and radio commercials, and I help produce those, and sometimes those can take 6 to 8 hours for a 30-second or 1 minute spot.
Well, again, we're not talking about the actual editing of it. That takes an enormous amount of time.
I'm thinking about that too.
Yeah, we're just talking about just recording the raw material.
Okay.
Right.
And actually, I think that's quite a bit of time to be in the studio. I know it's certainly exhausting for every narrator we've dealt with.
So is the editing next? Is that the next step?
Yeah, we have an editor that we work with that we send the DATs to, and they he edits it, he adds the music. He generally spends 20 or 30 hours doing the editing portion of it. And while that's going on, we work on the cover, and usually we use the book cover for the front. We sometimes modify it. On the back, we always have, well, not on this one. Usually we put the narrator's photo.
Kind of straight there, so they can
Oh, we put the narrator's photo and a bio of the narrator and the author, and then a description about what the book's about. On this one, the photos are inside.
On the other side, you show us the cover, the front cover.
The cover it's based on what the book was, but we modify it so that it fits what we need to have on it.
Okay. Is there a spine on these, or are they always shown? Are they always on the shelves face out, or are they spine out?
Well, we'd like them to be face out, but usually it's spine out, so the spine is really important. And on this series, we actually modified the spine a lot, and I really like our spine, personally. But so the spine's important, and the thicker the spine for us, the better. So we look for different types of packaging that will have a thicker spine. Okay.
So all your books have a similar format. I mean, all your covers. In a sense, this is the same format in the back with the photograph and the copy and the same basic layout of each cover. Right. Do your other books, other audio programs tend to have a theme to the covers also? Like these are all similar in layout and function?
Well, these are a series.
Yeah, but so each series would have its own similar design.
Exactly. We're working right now on a business series, New York Times Pocket MBA series. So they're all going to have a similar look. Each one will have a different picture and title on the front, but the general layout for the design will be similar.
Okay. Then it's done at that point?
Then it goes to the duplicator and the printer, and they print up the packages, and then they duplicate the audiobooks or the cassettes, and in between we actually have to listen to make sure everything sounds okay and give them the approval. We typeset the shell copy for the cassettes, and then we get a couple weeks later finished product.
What would be a reasonable run for the covers and for the dupes on the tapes?
We usually do 2,500 print run, first print run.
And you would say 4 cassettes per package?
These are 4 cassettes, sometimes 2.
2,500 of each cassette, obviously. So you make up 2,500 finished packages, whether it's 2 tapes or 4 tapes or 36 tapes.
Right.
Have you done any 36 tape projects?
Not yet. These are actually our longest ones, 4 cassette, which we've been really happy with.
That's good.
We sell mostly to the retail market, so going with packages that are much larger than this don't really fit in retail-wise, or at least how we market to the retail stores. So that's why this is probably about as big as we're going to go for the time being.
Okay. I generally tell people in the audience and so forth that the bookstore is the worst place to sell books, because of the discounts and the returns and the hassles of dealing with 120-day terms. Is that the same with audio, or are bookstores a good place to sell audio?
Well, I think every outlet is going to have its drawbacks, and you're always going to find reasons to be unhappy, at least as far as the salesperson is concerned. But the truth of the matter is, you have to have it in the retail stores. There's a reason why they're so successful, and I think it's important to have the exposure of any of our titles sitting on a Barnes & Noble or Borders shelf. Aside from the fact that you are getting sales there, I think it's just excellent exposure.
Sure.
And really very necessary. I mean, there are thousands, obviously, across the country. I'm not sure how a publisher could pass that up. But it's by no means the only way that we go. As we mentioned before, we deal with all the online services, catalogs, independent stores. We have our own website, so we deal directly with customers. We have a catalog that we mail out. So there are a number of other ways that we market and sell it.
Okay. Well, I wish we had more time to talk about it, but our time's up. Do you have any words of advice or any summary statements you'd like to, Alisa, perhaps you'd like to go first? Are any words of advice for the audience?
Words of advice.
Or summary.
It's audio publishing is a very interesting and growth area of publishing, and there's a lot of room for a lot of change in the future. I mean, with the internet, with downloading and streaming audio, the future is really
wide open.
Yeah, it is. It's wide open, and it's exciting times.
That's great.
Yeah, I think
Alfred.
it's an ideal time for any author or publisher to seek out an audio publisher, to even think about doing it themselves. You can get reviews for audiobooks more often and much easier than you can for the typical small book. And so you can get publicity and promotion that's going to support your book sales. I think it's something that any author or publisher can't pass up.
Great information. Well, thank you for being our book authorities of the week.
Thank you very
much. Thank you.
Details, great information. And I'd like to thank you all for joining us on the Book Authority. We've had a lot of good information tonight. A lot of good. The biggest thing is to have some kind of a different way to look at your project. If you're looking at doing a book, you may consider doing an audio project, and while you're writing it, consider that in the back of your mind as a good way to hit a market in a different way. And as Alfred said, taking the book, the audio program, using that to market your book. But if you can just, as you're writing it, think about perhaps the voice that may be used as the person reading it. But